Sometimes a D&D campaign exists because you have a deep idea for the themes of the campaign, because you know the story you want to tell collaboratively with your friends. And sometimes a campaign exists because of a bad pun. The best campaigns are a mix of both. This is the story of a campaign I ran called Cold West. It was a little before noon on the 1st of June in a region called the Frontier. An old turtle farmer drove a wagon into town. His hat kept away most of the sun's wrath, but still, it was horribly hot. It was always hot in the Frontier. The farmer drove into a small town called Road's End. It had only been established a few months earlier by men hoping to find another gold mine. Most people ended up in Road's End when they had nowhere else to go. As the farmer began setting up his stand, he was passed by a pair of tabaxi. One of them tall and old with a lion's mane, the other younger, his face covered by a red bandana. "Seems clear for now, old man," the younger man said, hand on his holster. "Will you relax yourself? We are not here to fight anybody," the old man grumbled. Yeah, befriend the settlers and reshape the frontier, blah blah blah, peace and tranquility and all that jazz. You've given me the speech plenty of times." A man walking to the saloon bumped into the old man. "Hey, watch where you're going!" The old tabaxi just stared down at him. "I'd suggest leaving before things escalate further." The man spat on the younger tabaxi's face. The old man sighed. In an instant, the young tabaxi flipped him off his feet, held his gun up to the back of his head, and cocked the hammer. "I told you to leave. Now, are you going to be smart, or are you going to be a stupid git?" The man ran into the saloon to get away. Humph. Meanwhile, a train pulled into the station. A woman with skin like marble peeked her head out. Two goons waiting by the station nodded to each other and reached for their guns. Meanwhile, a gunslinger named Artemis was sitting in the back of the saloon, her eyes glazed over. An ornate pistol sat in her holster, faintly glowing. Artemis tossed down a pair of cards. The man sitting across the table from her was less than impressed. "You trying to cheat me?" "Yep." The man stood up, grabbing his gun. "Do you know who I am? I'm Big Jim. I own this town." "Good for you." "And I don't like cheaters very much." The gun in her holster began whispering in Artemis's ear. She sighed. "Look, it's almost noon. Do you want to take this outside and do that bullshit? Because I can kill you right now if you want that, but then there'd be a bit of a mess." "You got a big mouth. I'll put a bullet in it." Artemis followed Big Jim outside. He stared at the clock, his hand on his holster, ready to draw. She ignored Big Jim, pulled out a cigar, and began smoking, not even bothering to look at the clock. "Looks like we get to watch some bloodshed, old man. Who are you bang on?" "Humph." As all of this happened, the metaphorical camera panned up, above the frontier, above the planet, into the stars. It continued zooming out until it reached the astral sea, the void between planes of reality. Floating in the astral sea was a space station, operated by the Rishtalk Interplanetary Enforcers, a group of Githyanki space cops that dealt with interplanar incursions. One of the characters in this campaign didn't match the Wild West setting, but I made it work! Inside the space station, a hype agent, Jiru, was receiving orders from his superiors. "Your target is a man by the name of Kylo Cold. Is he a kobold?" "Sure, why not? Your target is a kobold by the name of Kylo Cold. 2 months ago, he stole a device from us. Its code name is the Bitter Cold. Its purpose is confidential. Is it a weapon? It can be used as one. Cold's ship was shot down shortly after he stole the Bitter Cold. We assumed he was dead, but recently we have detected energy signatures from the device. Your task is simple. You are to kill Cold and bring back the device before it is used." "Where am I dropping?" "It is a sparsely populated desert the local primitives call the Frontier. This mission will require subtlety, hence the decision to send in a single agent. You must complete your duty quickly without disrupting the natural evolution of this plane. Your job is to keep your impact to a minimum. Understood." The commanders tapped a few buttons and beamed Jiru down to the frontier. As the clock struck noon, a few things happened all at once. The goons waiting by the train station opened fire, striking the marble woman in the stomach. Big Jim reached for his gun. Artemis drew hers first, firing what should have been a lethal shot before Big Jim could raise his gun. Jiru beamed down in the middle of town, in the middle of the firefight. All of these things happened at the same time. But none of them were the most important thing to happen as the clock struck noon. Because as the minute hand joined its brother at the 12 mark, A horrid sound was heard across the frontier, sounding like glass being shattered by a cannonball. The shattering was followed by a deep, echoing roar. As the roar swept across the frontier, the sky turned black, and the ground turned to ice. Heavy snow began falling, blown by the howling wind, as temperatures dropped 120 degrees in an instant. Artemis's bolt struck the communicator Jiro was holding, knocking it out of his hand. Big Jim finished drawing his pistol and fired, grazing Jiro's ear. Years of training kicked in as Jiro spun around and blasted apart Big Jim's head with his blaster. The marble woman panicked and ran back into the train. The goons chased after her. Thunder, watching this, decided to intervene. He drew his pistols and gunned down one of the goons. Drops of the goon's blood froze mid-air and clinked down onto the icy ground. The other goon followed his target into the back of the train. As his eyes scanned the car, spiritual weapon scythe flew out from under one of the seats and cut his head off. Panting, the marble woman sat down and began tending to her stomach wound. Artemis, seeing the sudden blizzard, did the obvious thing, ran for the saloon to get out of the cold. Jiro ran after her to get cover. The farmer ran for the saloon, but he was stopped in his tracks as an icy spirit appeared before him. The spirit waved her hand, concentrating the cold filling the town around the farmer. He fell to his knees, so cold he was barely alive. The Lion Man's halberd plunged through the spirit. She turned her head towards the Lion Man and wailed, loud enough to shatter all the windows on the train and almost knock out everyone who heard it. The Lion Man wasn't impressed. He roared back even louder, frightening the spirit. The farmer held his hands out and unleashed a blast of fire, killing the spirit. The tabaxi helped the old farmer into the saloon. Is anyone still outside? There's a woman on the train. She got hit in the stomach. Said woman had been knocked out by the spirit's scream. Lying in the train, she began to die as the cold sapped away her life force. The Lion Man kicked open the door to the train car, scooped her up in his arms, and carried her back to the saloon. What the fuck is this white stuff? Snow? Yeah, I got that. Why the fuck is it snowing? Jiro didn't say anything, although he had a pretty good idea of what was going on. Townsfolk began boarding up the door to the bar to keep out the cold. A panicking woman tried to force her way out. You don't want to go out there, ma'am. It's my children. They were playing down by the watering hole. I need to save them. Hate to tell you this, but they're already dead. Alisai ripped the wood off the door. He turned to the rest of the gathered townsfolk. I am Alisai Ephraim. This is my grandson, Thunder. We're going to go out there to find these children. Excuse me? Our fur will keep us warm. Will anyone else join us? Artemis stood up. Fuck no, it's cold as balls outside. I don't feel like dying. I'll go. Alisai, Jiro, and Thunder marched through the cold towards the watering hole. Jiro was able to find footprints in the snow, leading to two children hiding in an overturned wagon next to a makeshift fire. Alisai smiled and put a blanket over the shivering children. Thunder noticed something moving towards them. A monster with a white exoskeleton that blended into the falling snow. He drew his pistols and unloaded them into the monster. Its black blood dripped down over its chest, making it plainly visible. Jiro fired at it with his blaster. The monster lunged for the children. Alisai stepped in the way, catching its striking claws. It hissed as it tried to overpower him. Alisai planted his feet firmly and entered a rage. He began to grow until he was larger than the monster. He ripped its arms off and kicked it into the frozen pond. They carried the children back to their mother, boarded up the bar, and waited. Then, after 4 hours, the blizzard ended as quickly as it began. The ice disappeared as the desert's heat re-emerged. The farmer walked over to his cart. His horse was dead and his produce was destroyed. There was no doubt in his mind that his farm had been devastated by the blizzard. A few hours later, the townsfolk got the train up and running again. Alisai offered to go south to the frontier's capital city, Rigum, to request aid for the village. With the farms gone, Road's End would fall apart quickly without help. Thunder followed Alisai into the train, as did the old farmer. Hello, fellow traveler. I am Alisai. You said that earlier. Name's Orin. Will you join us in our quest for aid? What? No, I'm heading south because I need to get out of this country as soon as possible. I'm cold-blooded, understand? I don't do well with snow. The blizzard has passed. This blizzard has. But something like that doesn't just happen. It's magic, and if it's going to happen again, I don't plan on being around for the next one. Artemis, Jiro, and the Marble Woman all climbed aboard before the train left. As the train was leaving the station, Thunder sat down next to the Marble Woman. Howdy. Go away. How's the gunshot wound? None of your business. You're real chatty, you know that? She didn't say anything in response. She just looked out the window at the scenery going by. Let me introduce myself properly. I'm Thunder in the Morning. I'm a gun for hire. I used to do a lot of work for this family of gangsters down in Righam, the Harpers. A few weeks back, I heard that the Don retired and that his kids were fighting for control of the Mafia. Last I heard, the twins had put out a bounty on their little sister's head. I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do, Clementine. The marble woman drew her machete and held it to his throat. If you know what's good for you, you'll forget that name. Easy. I'm not your enemy. I killed the man who tried to kill you, and I am more than willing to keep your secret for a price. I'm not giving you jack shit. I don't owe you or anyone anything. Thunder tipped his hat. Understood. What are you doing out here anyway? I was trying to hide from the men who wanted me dead, but evidently that was pointless. Now I'm going home to take back what's mine. On the other side of the train car, Jiro looked at his communicator. It had been heavily damaged by the gunshot, leaving him unable to track Kylo Colt's life signature. But he was able to track something bigger, the wave of interplanar energy that had spiked right before the blizzard. He fiddled with the communicator, calculating when the next spike would hit. It would hit on June 9th at 4 p.m. 8 days remained.